Hi, everyone. This is Lauren Baker, founder of Search Engine Journal, and welcome to today's SEJ webinar with our special partners, Conductor. With us today, we have Zach and Alex, who are going to be discussing 2024 trend updates, what's really working in SEO and content marketing, and I can't think of a better time to be going over this because things are changing on a weekly basis, it seems. Before we get started with housekeeping, Zach and Alex, would you guys like to say hello?
Hey everyone, how's it going?
How's it going, everyone? Thanks for joining.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you here today. So before we get started with the presentation itself, I'll just give some stragglers time to come in, and then also go over a little bit about how today's webinar is going to work. I see our chat room is pretty busy already. So yes, please chime in. Let us know where you're from. Everything else, it's great to see we have so many chats going on right now. So that's a great way to kind of get everyone going from a participation standpoint. You'll also see underneath the presentation, there are a bunch of emojis. So if you have, go ahead and test it out right now. Smiley face, congratulations, heart, laugh out loud, raise the roof, whatever it may be. As you see slides or Alex or Zach say something that you really agree with, that's a great way to do so. We are going to have a Q&A after today's presentation. But as you have questions that pop up that are related to the presentation that's going on today, please feel free to enter them into the Q&A box. We'll then be going through them after the presentation is over and answering your questions accordingly. Last but not least, there will be 2 polls today. We find it very helpful for everyone to participate in the polls as they're being conducted, and it's really quick. It's just a quick vote. Those are going to be later on in today's presentation. And I believe that's pretty much everything. So Zach and Alex, I'm going to hand things over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that. And yeah, we have a jam-packed agenda today. We're really excited to kind of talk about the evolving search landscape, both from a content perspective and from a general SEO side. Just wanted to, briefly introduce myself. My name is Zach Kadish. I'm a senior SEO strategy director here at Conductor. Been at Conductor for a little over 8 years. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about the evolution of search in 2024.
Absolutely. And I'm Alex Carcietta. I'm a senior customer success manager at Conductor. I've been with Conductor for a little over 2 years. I'm based out of New York City, and every single day I have conversations with different users just like you, helping grow your marketing and SEO strategy. So really looking forward to diving in today.
Awesome. And, just as Lauren mentioned, put any question and answers within, the Q&A field. We'll definitely make sure to spend a good amount of time answering them after today's presentation. So, let's jump into a little bit more around some of the top trends we're noticing in both SEO and content marketing. We already, introduced ourselves. So before we actually get into the content, just wanted to kind of break down a little of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking a little bit more around, some of the future within SEO and search in 2024. Talk a little bit more around some things to actually be prioritizing in the new year. Then we're also going to talk about some trends you actually can ignore moving forward, things that, might have been popular back in the day and no longer are. And then, Alex is going to cover these same exact topics, but more from the content marketing side. So again, any questions you have, feel free to put them in the Q&A, and definitely excited to kind of talk a little bit more around that. And before we actually get into the presentation, we actually wanted to, release a poll question to kind of hear from you all. What trend in SEO are you most excited about? You'll see a poll question pop up shortly, and some of the options are AI overviews, the rise of user-generated content, AI written content, mastering EEAT, or other. And if you're not familiar with what some of these topics are, no worries. We're going to cover them a little later on today as well. So let's get
awesome. We have the poll running at the moment as well. So it looks like we have some responses coming in. Anything you'd like to add before I share the responses? Oh, we have almost 100 already.
Wow,
so,
I love that. I'm personally excited about, AI overviews and user-generated content, but let's see what the audience says. Okay, seems like, we have a good...
All about EAT.
It looks like a breakdown of cross-border, but EAT, we'll definitely cover some topics there. And that's obviously a hot topic that, is very important. It's one of the main mantras of Google nowadays. So I'm happy everyone kind of said that.
Great.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks for that. And we'll have another poll question a little later on, but, let's dive into the content now. So, what is the future of SEO in 2024? As Lauren mentioned, there's a lot happening. There's a lot changing. There's a lot going on in search and within SEO. Things are rapidly changing. Even while we were putting this presentation together, things have already changed. We have to kind of adapt our slides already. But if you haven't seen AI overviews, they are here. Earlier in 2023, Google announced that SGE, or Search Generative Experience, will be coming. They allowed users to opt into this experience. And what you really saw was, AI generated answers directly on Google. Now this is actually being launched officially in the United States. So you might already see this in the wild while you're doing searches. There's been, some pros and cons in terms of how users are interacting with it. And we'll cover these a little later on in terms of how to prepare for AI overviews and what to really monitor around this. In addition to that, Google is also getting a lot better at identifying auto-generated and low-quality content. When all these AI tools were released, a lot of websites were actually creating content written fully by AI. And, that's not great. That's not a great thing. Google caught on to that, and it's punished some of those sites. Alex will talk a little bit more around this during the presentation today as well. And finally, user-generated content is starting to show up everywhere. We see Reddit, we see Quora, we see TikTok. We see all these user-generated content showing up directly on Google, which really shows that Google wants to prioritize firsthand experiences for people nowadays so they get the answer that they want. And this little, graphic that you see on the right-hand side of your screen, this is the main thing that we want you to take away from the presentation. We're going to talk about a lot of different topics, a lot of different trends. The main thing that you should keep in mind, though, is when we create content, we want to create content not for AI tools, not for ChatGPT, not for Google or these other search engines. We want to create content for the heart and the soul of the user. Anytime you're creating content, anytime you're doing anything on your website, we want to make sure that you're addressing a user's need and you're creating content that's relevant, that's helpful, and that's high quality. So let's jump into a little bit more around some of the things that I just mentioned. So let's talk a little bit more of some of the trends that might be appearing in this year of 2024 that have been relatively new. So AI overviews are here and they will impact SEO. They just launched within the United States this last month, and there's been, a significant rise in queries that are showing up for AI overviews. I was previously opted into Search Generative Experience, and it is slightly different of an experience, but it is very similar in a sense where for a lot of, informational or complex queries, we are noticing this AI snippet show up directly above the search results. So for instance, what you'll see on the right-hand side is actually what it might look like if you do a search. You're going to get an answer that's populated directly from Google. And Google is aggregating this answer from a variety of different sources on the web, and then it actually sources where this information is coming from. And this is obviously a big change. This is one of the biggest changes Google has done in a long time, because now this AI snippet takes up almost like half of the fold on page one of Google. So what we should expect is, there could potentially be a decrease in organic traffic. There could be a decrease in organic clicks. Google has stated that if you do show up in the AI overview section, you actually will get more clicks than a general result. As of right now, we can't really, monitor the clicks between AI overviews and outside of it. So we'll have to take their word at this, but it is something to monitor. And I do think it's important to educate your leadership around this result type, how this is showing up, and there could be a potential decrease in the organic channel, especially for your informational queries. And we're going to talk a little bit more around how you can identify AIO, how you can prepare yourselves for both AIO and EAT. So how do we prepare for AIO? What steps can we take to make sure our content is in good shape here? So, now that AIO is, out and about, and it's in the wild, we do need to take any study or, any industry benchmarking that you see with a grain of salt. No one is really able right now to monitor this at scale. So we do have to take everything that we're seeing in terms of the industries and the queries that it's impacting with a grain of salt. AIO is also very personalized to the user. We could all type in the same exact question, and we might get a slightly different answer because it's personalizing the information based off of what they feel we want to see. So I do recommend for like informational queries that you are ranking well for, do a Google search around them. See if you actually are being sourced in the AIO. See if the keyword that you're generating is actually showing up for an AIO and you're not being sourced in there. Just make sure, that's a good way to kind of have a little benchmark test. But what can we do? What can we do as webmasters, as content marketers? What can we actually do here? Let's actually kind of go back to the basics and make sure that your site is technically sound. Make sure that it's crawlable, it's discoverable, it's indexable. If all that stuff isn't happening, then Google's obviously not going to find your content. It's also not going to source you in the AI overview. We also want to make sure that we have structured data or schema markup on our page. This is a language that Google uses, so it helps better understand what your content is. That's also a key to making sure that your content is more understandable in Google's eyes. And in addition to that, we also want to make sure we're optimized for relevant keywords. We want to make sure we have relevant keywords in the title tag, in the header tag, in the body copy, and we want to use a variety of these keywords on the page. We don't want to use the same keyword over and over. Otherwise, Google might not understand the intent of our page. Check out some of the ways that Conductor can help. We have, a strategy blog post talking about some of the things I just mentioned. It goes a little bit more in depth on how to prepare your site for AI overview. You can always check out our site for, a free assessment. But I definitely recommend just do a Google test on your own for keywords that your company cares about and see what shows up. Currently, what I'm honestly seeing is it's not really showing up too much for very transactional related phrases. It's mainly showing up for more, complex queries and informational phrases. But the answers it gives, are pretty good. Now to the topic that, seems like everyone's really excited about, EEAT. This has honestly never been more important than beforehand. Every algorithm update that Google does is related to EEAT. If you're not familiar with what this acronym stands for, it stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. The key here is that when Google wants to show content based off the user's query, it wants to make sure that the content it's showing is trustworthy. It wants to make sure that the people who are writing our content know what they are talking about. So when we say experience, we want to make sure that, the authors on our website actually have firsthand experience doing that type of whatever it is, whether it's phishing, whether it's insurance. We want to make sure that they know exactly what they're talking about, because if you have experience, you're also more likely to be an expert within that field, and you're going to be providing quality information that a user can actually benefit from. That's really the main part of this. We want to make sure that the content we are creating is a value add in Google's eyes. We don't want to just have the same cookie cutter content that's out there across the web. We want to make sure that the content we're creating has, experience and expertise behind it. In addition to that, we want to make sure that when we do that, Google can then actually see that we are authoritative around this topic. We are trustworthy around this topic. They're not going to show your content if they feel users won't benefit from it, users won't engage well with it, and they're not going to learn something that they, can learn from anyone else. Lily Ray has an amazing roundup of a bunch of different FAQ content, helpful videos, definitions, and it really breaks down this in a much more clear way for someone who might not be very familiar with what this topic is. But what I do recommend is to make sure that the people writing our content, have this experience and this expertise. In addition to that, if you don't have blog or informational content around what your, bread and butter products or services are, we do recommend that as well, because that's one of the main ways to build up authority and build up trustworthiness in Google's eyes. So let's talk a little bit more around, EEAT and around the next evolution of SEO. In our eyes, the next evolution of SEO is really, being more specific than ever before. This is a key component of making sure that our content is high quality and authoritative, because we need to create and build out content that's relevant, because Google doesn't really care where the answer comes from. It could come from one sentence on our site. It could come from, a Reddit post, a Quora post. It could come from anywhere on the web. As long as that answer helps the user and gets the answer what they need, that's all that really matters. So that is why it's key to really build up content and build up authority in Google's eyes, so we are sourced for the relevant content that, we can actually show up. I also think from EEAT standpoint of view, authorship will increase importance because that's one of the main ways that Google can actually understand who's writing the content, who they are, why are they an expert in this field. Every algorithm update that we're seeing really comes down to EEAT. It's their main mantra nowadays. They added an extra E into used to just be called EAT. Now it's double E and AT. And this is really due to the rise of AI written content. They want to make sure that the person writing the content, or at least edited or reviewed, has some type of expertise and experience in this area. So again, having authorship on your website is more important than ever before. It's almost becoming a necessity versus nice to have. I don't recommend adding authorship to product pages, but for blog content or content that you feel a user would want to know who is writing this, I do think it's really important to start adding authorship to your content. And also, we need to stop thinking about keyword rankings. With the AI overview, that took up half of page 1. Users might read that information, not even click into your content. They might read it and that's it. Or they might actually only click on the sources in the AI overview. Regardless of this, we need to start thinking of the SERP as its entire landscape and work with the other channels in our organization to make sure that a user lands on our website and not a competitor's. So work with your paid teams, work with your social teams. Make sure that you're showing up with rich results in AI overview. Make sure that you're trying to show up in these different areas because that's more important than ever before in terms of getting someone on our site versus someone else's. And as I mentioned before, Google is answering informational queries better than ever before. You can type in a very long tail phrase into Google and it will spit out an answer using AI that gives you a pretty good answer. I know there's been some, AI hallucinations out there that kind of go viral when Google answers the wrong question or gives you a bad answer. That's bound to happen, and as they start testing things out. But Google is still giving pretty good answers here. It's almost like a supercharged answer box, and a user might read this information and be like, you know what, that's a good answer for me. I don't need anything else. Or they might fact check it and look at some of the sources. What we recommend is focus your content on complex transactional and commercial queries. We need to create content that's future-proofing our site. So Google, AI overviews, ChatGPT can't just rip the answer directly. We want users to have some value to come to our site. So we need to prioritize creating deep dive content, specific guides, information around a complex topic that cannot just be directly answered by these AI tools. That's why it's more important than ever before to have first-hand experience around the industry, around the topic. That's what users want. That's why we've seen a lot of user-generated content rise. Not every answer needs to be, provided by a user on Reddit, but sometimes it is really helpful to hear first-hand experiences from them. So we really need to make sure that when we create content, we're providing some type of first-hand experience that's future-proofing our content against SGE. So it's really important to make sure that we're doing all these aspects within 2024 to make sure we're still driving content to our site. And again, expect an increase in long tail searches. People can type in very stream of consciousness information and you get a really good answer. So expect an increase of long tail conversational searches that might not necessarily have, search volume. That's why it's important to make sure that we're answering the right questions on our content that users actually want the answers to, because people might type very differently. Alex and I might type in the same question in using a lot of different words, but we mean the same thing. We need to make sure that we're answering the content on our site. So now what can we actually ignore in 2024? The first one being voice search. I remember when voice search was going to, change the way that people search. No one was going to be Googling anymore. Everyone was going to be using Siri or these other search, voice search tools. That's not really happening. Most people still, go to Google to type things in. You also can't really measure voice search still. So voice search, it's not as important as people thought. I don't think we really need to worry about this anymore. Also, stop thinking in terms of monitoring specific search ranking factors. I know it's weird to say don't think about search ranking factors, but instead of getting into the nitty gritty of everything, I know that the Google leaks recently happened and everyone was diving deep into all the things that Google lied to us about or all the things that were found in the different documents. And yeah, sure, there was some pretty interesting stuff in there around click-through data and Chrome data. But in the end of the day, what we really need to think about is take a step back and think about the bigger picture. What we really need to think about is EEAT, how to create content that's valuable, that's helpful, that's relevant. How do we get users to engage with our content, stay in our site, and convert? And they're not going to do that if you aren't, being the authority in the space and building up that trust with them by providing them answers that they really care about. So don't track all these, little ranking factors anymore, because the majority of the algorithm is really due to machine learning. So in the end of the day, we need to create content that's valuable and that answers the heart and the soul of the consumer.
Awesome. Thanks, Zach.
All right, so on to the next poll question.
Perfect. So the next poll question, what trend do you believe will have the biggest impact on content marketing in 2024? So we have a few different options. Renewed focus on content quality, integration of AI-generated content, adaptation to Google's search generative experience, now called AI overviews, or all of the above.
So I have a few responses that have come through already. On our way to 100, so I'm going to go ahead and share the results right now. Oh, at 152 thus far.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on this, gentlemen?
Awesome. So we got a few good responses here. Seems to be leaning towards all the above, which is definitely something that we'd all expect to see, especially with the different uses of AI integrated into Google and content creation process. So I think that's great.
Outstanding. I'll go ahead and close this out then. All right, we're good.
Cool. So what is the future of content marketing in 2024? I'd say that the future of content is largely centered around returning to tried and true best practices with a renewed focus on content quality and increasing productivity and efficiency within workflows through the use of artificial intelligence. So when we say centered around returning to tried and true best practices, it really comes down to the basics of, are you doing that keyword research and making sure you're using keywords and finding keywords that your potential customers are actually searching for with intent? And are you creating your content in a SEO optimized and best practices strategy? A return to the basics does still require a more nuanced approach, especially with the implications of AI-generated content, the unknown impact of Google's AI overviews, and the challenges of capturing attention in a digital world inundated by low-quality and oversaturated content. You definitely do not want to use AI to write all of your content without any human editing. Sports Illustrated recently had a scandal in which they were doing just this, and I even saw that they went as far to create author bio pages with fake AI people that did not exist. So something that I always like to call out is it's important to keep in mind that Google isn't against using AI within your content creation process. You can and you should leverage it to increase efficiencies and create human-first, high-quality content. A few best practices that I recommend using AI in your content creation process is using it for keyword research and also using it to create a content outline. What you will get penalized for is when you're creating your content entirely with AI without any human editing or any human knowledge within that content. So here's some content trends to focus on in 2024 and prioritize. In 2024, AI is going to be shifting from center stage to a more supporting role within your content workflows. AI, in fact, should not be writing all of your content. 2023 was all about the hype of generative AI advancements, with everyone calling it the end of human writers, given that AI technology could, in theory, generate all different types of content. But as we learned from brands and different companies who jumped on the auto-generated content creation bandwagon, such as Sports Illustrated that I mentioned, the clear message sent by Google in the most recent 2024 core algorithm update is that AI can't replace the intrinsic human element needed to create quality, long-form content, and search engines will penalize websites that try to sneak only AI-generated content through. Instead, AI should be integrated into your content creation workflows to reduce the most time-intensive aspects, including topic ideation, keyword research, content outline generation, content promotion, and content optimization. We like to say that AI is a tool, but it's not a replacement. Secondarily, quality over quantity remains true. Prioritize leveraging trust and expertise within your content to improve quality. We've said it before and we'll say it again. More content does not directly lead to higher rankings. It's all about your content quality. You could be creating large amounts of content on your website, but if you're not creating that content with SEO in mind as you're going through the process of creating that content, if you're not doing your keyword research, if you aren't optimizing your content for SEO best practices, that's not directly going to lead to higher rankings just because you're creating more content. Users are being bombarded with low-quality, auto-generated content. They want content created for humans by humans with proven experience in solving their specific problems. For 2024, building trust and leveraging first-hand experience will be one of the core differentiators that determine content success. Third, similar to what we're seeing within SEO, content marketing is also reverting to core fundamentals to drive success and overcoming emerging disruptions, such as Google's AI overviews. Tried and true best practices remain the best way forward for content marketers. Know your audience, do the keyword research, differentiate your content, avoid shiny objects like AI-generated content, and leverage the right tools to increase efficiency. Map content creation to the customer journey. Is that going to help achieve results regardless of future disruptions? Again, it goes back to the concept that Zach had mentioned, EEAT, which is experience, expertise, authority, and trustworthiness, and big picture thinking. When you're creating content, are you producing specific, differentiated, human-first content that demonstrates your expertise, builds trust, and provides value for your audience? If not, now is the time to adapt your strategy. Here are some pro tips for content marketers in 2024. First step, run a content audit on your website and understand your current performance, identify gaps in where you may be not ranking for or not have much content on your website as of today, and identify opportunities. This is going to help you create a plan to repurpose existing content or create new human value-driven content. Secondarily, you're going to want to target relevant, hyper-targeted niche topics. Create comprehensive content around those topics and focus on being specific in your content. As Zach had mentioned, specificity along long-tail keywords and answering questions for your priority topics is going to be super important moving forward. Create pillar pages and topic clusters to show Google how authoritative you are around a topic and make it easy for users to navigate through your content. A pillar page and a topic cluster strategy, for those of you who are not as familiar with, is creating a large amount of content around a single topic. So your pillar page is going to be that main page, which is going to focus more so on a short, broad keyword, and the topic clusters focus on long tail keywords that are all revolving around that similar topic. As a best practice, you're going to want to link each of the topic cluster pages back to the pillar page and vice versa. And it really does tell Google that we're doing a great job of becoming an authority and an expert on a specific topic that's relevant to our business. Fourth, consider adopting a TikTok-style approach to your product videos to capture more interest on social, humanize your platform or products, and engage a larger audience in a more casual way. So in conclusion, what's ahead for SEO and content marketing in 2024? The future of SEO and content marketing is pivoting towards a more user-centric, human-first, and expertise-driven approach. Optimizing for Google's potential AI overviews, doubling down over content quality over quantity, and creating accessible, value-focused content that demonstrates EEAT, and leveraging AI as a supporting tool rather than a single content generator will be core objects to achieving sustainable success in 2024 and the upcoming years. So we're
Absolutely.
happy to open up. I see there's been a lot of chatter and questions, so we're happy to open up to any questions that you all may have.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been a lot of chatter and a lot of questions, a lot around AI and EAT. So, first question that comes in, which is quite interesting, is, and I think a lot of people are really asking this, like, is there a way right now to track, first of all, the pages on your site that are being referenced and utilized in Google's AI overviews, and or um, other third-party pages that are being referenced in AI overviews for your own company's branded queries?
Yeah, great question. I feel like the golden question that everyone's trying to figure out right now. Short answer is no. There is not a current way to see this. There's been a lot of other, enterprise tools out there that are claiming that they can monitor this, but they're not doing it in the way that they can see it at scale. The only way you can see AI overviews right now is you need to be logged into Google Chrome. You have to have a profile. You have to be authenticated. So that means Google has to know that you are a user. If you go into incognito, not logged in, you're not going to see it. So the only way to actually see this right now is through an authenticated view using Google Chrome. That's the only way you can actually see this answer right now. So there's truly no way right now to actually monitor the AI at scale, the AI overview results, the keywords that are generating it, and the sources that are being shown up. Obviously, there's a lot of testing going on with all these platforms. Conductor itself is also testing out different ways to monitor this, in a legal way where we're not scraping the SERPs, where we're not using VPNs, because that's not the true way to see this information. Google did state that you can see in Google Search Console, like if your answer is in the AI reviews, you can technically see the clicks for it, but it's not broken out specifically where this keyword is generating an AI overview, or this page is. What I do recommend though is set up a benchmark test. So, it was AI overviews was your last, right around last month. So set up a benchmark test in Google Search Console and any platform you use to see if any page has seen a pretty big increase or decrease in clicks and traffic and rankings, and then do some testing on your own. That could be a good way to actually test out, is my content showing up in the AI overview, or is it not showing up? And that's why I'm losing clicks. So that's what I recommend for right now.
Yeah, we're right at the beginning of this, right? And also, a lot of AI overviews are dynamic. So the sources are constantly changing. The content in the overview is constantly changing from day to day. So it's going to be interesting to see how that rolls out in terms of what we can do from a tracking perspective. But I like your recommendation on baselining and the ability to show like increases and decreases, especially when we see sometimes a change or no change in impressions there as well. Going back to EEAT, we have a question that's come up numerous times. For businesses that typically do not want to use author names. So I've run into this where a business will be like, well, we don't necessarily want to invest in this person becoming our expert, because that puts us in a position where if that person were to move on or something like that, then we're losing that. So we want to use the business name, or we want to use a generic name. Is that a smart strategy? Can that be utilized and still show expertise to Google, or are there any alternatives that you would recommend when building out that author profile and that EEAT strategy from a business perspective, when you can't use a person's name, so to speak?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I've seen several sites do it with the company name. So, for example, you can say Conductor Experts or the Conductor Team, and potentially try to create a page around that specific Conductor Team page, for example, or your business name team. I think best case scenario is definitely to create that author bio page, linking back to that specific user's LinkedIn, for example, or maybe some other articles that specific user created around that topic to really show Google that you are a specific expert. But definitely understand that there may be some restrictions in some industries as well. So I think as an alternative, creating a company author bio page is definitely sufficient as well.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen other instances where people don't want to put their actual name on the article. Sometimes we've seen it where, you put an executive who, is more comfortable and is likely not going anywhere for a while. So like, you could put the executive's name there. I've also seen instances, I think Bankrate does this and some other websites where they actually wrote like reviewed by and edited by. So that's another thing that you could do. And then like those are also author pages. The key part of the authorship is to create these authorship pages as well, and then add author schema and structured data. So Google understands who this person is and why they're an expert within this field. So that's really the benefit there, and is why it's important for EEAT.
What about things like interviewing other experts that are on the subject matter that really know what they're talking about? So, say for example, I'm interviewing one of you guys, putting it on the SEJ blog. Is that going to help us? Is that going to help vice versa? Like how does that work from an EAT perspective?
I still think that can be, beneficial, because in that sense, you're like the website that even if they're interviewing someone else, you're still getting that firsthand experience, and you're creating content around someone else's firsthand experience, which in the end of the day is exactly what Google wants to see. It wants to, and same thing with users, they want to learn from others who have already done something, who's already an expert in that field. So that's another good way to kind of do it. And then you can still link out to that expert. They didn't write the content necessarily, but they're still contributing to it. So I think that's also a very appropriate way to show expertise.
Next question is with the rollout of the AI overviews, what different changes are you seeing in terms of the amount of real estate these take up within the Google results? Do you see that it's that maybe it's changing the way that how many organics are shown per page under the overview, or even where the ad is being shown after or before the AI overview? Typically, what are you seeing from a landscape perspective on the SERPs now with this?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some pretty weird stuff. I've seen ads above the AI overview, so it's like ads, then AI overview, then like the organic listings. I've seen the AI overview and then ads, and then the organic listings. Google said that ads are actually going to be coming out soon in AI overviews. I still have seen the 10 results below the AI overviews, regardless of what else is showing up. But it takes up the AI overviews, as Lauren said, it takes up half of page one. It's interesting. Like it's also funny, like, because now that people who are not in the SEO or the content world are noticing this. I've asked my friends, I've asked people, what do you do with this stuff? Do you click on it? Do you read it? A lot of times they say for like work and those types of information, they scroll past it. They don't look at it. For personal stuff, they look at it and they read it and they click into it. So I think it's based off of what you're coming to Google for. Some people might interact with it. Some people might be like, I didn't ask for this, I don't want it, and they'll scroll past it. So, it is interesting how people are going to start interacting with it. But I've still typically noticed 10 blue links, after the ads and after the AI overviews, but it's more crowded than ever before. That's why we really say, let's focus, instead of just, keyword rankings, focus on the SERP landscape as a whole and get all these channels working together.
I'd also add to that too. I think that if you're a content creator or a person that works on SEO on your website, ultimately that's not really something that we can control, right? How much of the first page does that AI overview take up? So I think it does at the end of the day come down to still going back to the SEO best practices with doing your keyword research, optimizing your content, and controlling what you can control to make sure that you're putting yourself in a good place to rank.
Very cool. Yeah, it is kind of interesting that ads seem to be tested now, especially when Google first announced that they were integrating an AI experience. It was all going to be ad-based, right? They were like going to announce it started with shopping and flights and things like that. But it seems to be the opposite approach. Here's an interesting question. So we had a lot of questions come up earlier in terms of like, hey, what if my company can't use an author name, or what if we don't want to use an author name? Well, what if someone is what if someone wants to become an authority and build authority on a topic? And I've seen this quite a bit, like in the medical spaces. Like you may have a doctor on staff or a veterinarian on staff that really, really knows their business, but doesn't necessarily have a digital footprint, right? So let's say in this example from Barb, the owner of a pest control company, where can they begin to build out their digital footprint so Google really knows that they are an authority on that topic matter?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, first off, I would, if you don't have a digital presence, start to create one. Like create a LinkedIn profile at the very least. With your experience, if you've been in the pest control industry for X amount of years, create it. A LinkedIn profile with it. Put your company on there, add a little profile. Because the benefits of creating authorship pages is you can link out to your social profile. So users, Google can understand, okay, this person does know what they're talking about. Same thing if you own the website, create an authorship page and talk about all the experience that you've had within the pest control industry. You might not actually be creating content right away around this stuff, but you do have that firsthand experience because you've been, living and breathing this in this industry for X amount of years. So, create a LinkedIn profile, create a social profile, and then you can start creating content that can actually be hosted off of that, authorship page. But, you don't necessarily need to be creating content to be an authority. You could also just be doing the thing that you want to talk about for many years. And then, you are adding that firsthand experience. You could also then contribute to different forums that are specific to your industry. You could get involved in different online communities. That could be another way to really grow your presence. But, build out some social profiles to start, build out those pages, and then start contributing the content. I think that would be a good way to kind of start building your authority, at least online.
Excellent. And this would not be an SEO presentation if we did not talk about link building. So Brandon asked, what are the trends with link building? Do links still matter? He believes that Google came out, and I think he's referring to Gary Ayesh's statement a while back saying that links are playing less value, less of a vital role in rankings. I think if it went back to Gary's statement, it was more so that they don't need as many links to discover a source anymore. But anyway, what is the current trend in link building, and do links still matter?
Absolutely. I mean, what we say at Conductor, and Alex, I'm interested to hear if any of your clients ask more about links too, is like, if you create high quality content, the links are going to come. People are going to source you because you're creating high quality content. Obviously, if you're, purchasing links from high authority domains that are relevant in your industry is obviously still an approach that you can take and is a good way to build up authority in Google's eyes. It's also a very tedious and expensive effort. So, it's where you want to kind of put your money and put your efforts in here. I personally recommend to my clients to focus on, creating high quality content, and the links are going to come. But again, it depends on what industry you're in. Like if you're going up against like .govs, .edus, .orgs, maybe you do need to focus on link building because those are very authoritative domains and it's harder to kind of break through for that. So it kind of depends on the industry you're in. I'm not going to say don't try it out, but I personally recommend just create the high quality content and the links are going to end up coming. But Alex, do your clients ever mention links at all?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Zach had mentioned. I mean, when you're going against the Wikipedias or the .gov sites, it definitely gets a little bit more competitive where you may need to try to think about building out the linking structure as well. Something that I also like to recommend as well, which maybe when it comes into looking at your own internal linking structure on your website, I feel like that's something that may be overlooked sometimes, but we like to say that the more links that you add to a page on your website is something that you can control, and it is a really easy way of telling Google that this page is important to my website. So we've actually seen some use cases where pages or internal pages on your website have been internally linked to not very well, and sometimes those pages do not perform very well. It's also not as easy for Google to find those pages. So I think also optimizing the internal linking strategy on your website is a really important practice that I recommend. And again, it's something that you can control on your own site, which may be overlooked sometimes, but is a good best practice.
Yeah, I really feel bad for those orphan pages when it shows up in the results. Like, for orphan pages, let's make sure you can get some links to them so Google can find them. One question that comes in is, how does one simply explain what SEO is today to the C-suite level, right? There's been so many changes. And I'm sure I'm sure in terms of explanation isn't just like educating someone what SEO is, but have there been organic drops? Have there been organic gains? Have there been changes in impressions? If someone, you get an email forwarded to you from the CEO who just read an article on LinkedIn saying how Google AI overviews are going to kill all of SEO. Like, what's a great way to educate and explain the current status of SEO to the C-suite?
I know, Alex. I feel you had a good response in the question and answers around this, but I feel like executives sometimes don't always care about SEO until they are Googling something and you're not showing up, or until the results are doing poorly. That's when everyone actually cares. What I recommend is, when you think about SEO, just think about making sure that your website is kind of, that digital billboard. Put it in terms that they'll understand. Usually executives care about revenue and competitors. So frame it in a way that they can understand that X, Y, and Z competitor that they care about is doing really well organically, or organic revenue is decreasing for X, Y, and Z reasons. Put it in they're not going to care about your keyword optimizations, your title tag changes. They're not going to care about the in the weeds stuff. Obviously, those things are important, but you have to frame it in a way that matters to them, that you can speak to their level. So put it in the position of how much market share we have versus a competitor organically. Put it in terms of how much organic revenue is already coming to the site, and there's already these issues. So think of how much more we could come, but in a sense, it's kind of free revenue, because it's not like we're paying for ads. It's not like we're doing X, Y, and Z to get this revenue. Your website can continue to reap results from changes that you made a while ago. So try to just put it in their lens. I always just frame it as, it's our digital billboard that we need to make sure that we have, consumers' eyes on, because that's how we're going to make money. That's how we're going to stay competitive in the field. And that's how we're going to make sure that people come to our site and not our competitors. So I always try to frame it based off of competitors and revenue that they care about.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I'd definitely agree with everything Zach mentioned. And I'd also say it's really just making sure that we can be found for the products and services that really matter to our business. So when potential customers are looking online for help, or they're looking for specific products and services that we can sell, making sure that they can find us and not our competitor.
This is one question that came up, and I don't really know the answer. Do AI overviews show up only in Chrome, or do they show up in other browsers when people search on Google?
I've personally only seen them using Google Chrome, and you're logged into an authenticated view within Chrome right now. If anyone else has seen it in other browsers, definitely feel free to send that our way. When it was first launched, AI overviews, that was what I read and that's primarily what I've seen. But if you're seeing it in other instances, and maybe I misspoke. Maybe you have to be logged into a Google profile. So it might not just be browser based. So I might have misspoke in terms of that. You have to be logged into a Google profile to show that you're authenticated. So it is likely other browsers, but you do have to be authenticated. The main point of that was you can't be in like incognito mode and generate AI overviews. That's not what we've seen yet. So you do have to have your Google profile logged in. So that's really what we've seen there.
Got you. So if your target market are all Microsoft Teams oriented companies that aren't allowed to use Google and can only use Edge, then you don't have much to worry about in this perspective. Any other tips on building out EEAT for several different industries besides just LinkedIn? So, for example, if does it help to have people on your team contributing to third-party sites as well, and then referencing back that they work at your company or whatever? What are some other when you have transparency in authorship, right, with your team, as opposed to the problems of companies that don't have transparency in authorship? What are some other ways to grow that EAT digital footprint?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Something that I've noticed from my own use of search is sometimes when you search a keyword or maybe search a question, is that Google has started bringing you directly to a highlighted passage on a specific result after you click on that page, rather than just bringing you to that top of the URL and you have to find the answer for yourself. So a lesson that teaches me is that we really need to be specific in our content, in the keywords that we are choosing and the questions that we're answering. And I think that really helps show Google that you are an expert on that specific subject matter when you're focusing on those specific keywords and those specific questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Alex and I, we actually did a webinar with, Search Engine Journal around this same topic in terms of content clusters and in terms of topic clusters. That's a great way to really build your authority in terms of Google's eyes. If you have content that's talking about all the different things that your business does, whether it's early stage, middle stage, late stage, that's a great way to build authority and to make sure that users are coming to your site. Maybe they're not ready to purchase. Maybe they want to learn about a topic. If they learn about it from your website, they're more likely to come back because that's where they learned it from. And again, just as Alex mentioned, they're very specific with this content. So Google is leading you directly to that passage based off of what the user typed in.
Excellent. And it's not just all about blog posts too, right? There's also videos, there's ebooks, there's other things. The great thing about ebooks is you can mark that up and register with Google that you are the author of an ebook. So it may even show you as the individual as an author in the knowledge panel. So all that kind of winds together. So we had a question come up about zero-click searches. So now that we're talking about more AI in the results and more Google just answering that simplified question, is there still value to reporting on brand impressions that occur within the world of zero-click queries?
I think it's still important to monitor that because, and so I actually have seen these AI overviews do sometimes show up for branded searches. And, sometimes when there are zero-click answers, many users just want that answer. They just want that information and then they're going to, bounce away. They're going to leave. But again, they might remember where it's being sourced from. They might remember, or if they do come back and they want to actually, do more with that content, you're going to be sourced in there and you're going to, get that click. So I do still recommend to monitor and, and track that. And that is also kind of what we're seeing in the evolution of search. Sometimes that's how users interact with Google. They actually don't want to click into anything. They just want an answer right away. But, that's why we also do recommend to sometimes try to create content that is a little bit more complex. That's a little bit, not as informational in some instances, but can be more commercial or transactional focused, because then they actually might click in and they might learn more. And we do have that deep dive and that guide that they can learn more from if they do want to, see more.
How are you at Conductor from the publishing side preparing for AI overviews? Are you seeing it much in the posts and the content that you're producing yourselves? You guys produce so much content. We're doing this video right now. You do, blogs, reports, this and that. What are you seeing from that end, and how do you find that you're adjusting yourselves?
Yeah, again, it is very personalized, but we've seen a lot of times, we do have a lot of academy content and best practices content. And a lot of times it's interesting because let's say you type in recommendation for title tag length. Currently, Conductor was also, we had an answer back before that. And now we're actually being sourced in the AI overview, but so are 3 other companies that are being sourced. I think Search Engine Journal might be one of them too. So it's interesting because Google is taking that answer from all 3 of our websites and making and giving you an answer directly there. So there sometimes is honestly a decrease in clicks for keywords like that because the user is getting the answer right away, and then they're not clicking into your content to learn more. But it is still very early on. But again, what we're doing is we're benchmarking and we're monitoring everything. I've typed in that same keyword 3 times a day. I get a different answer every time. I get different sources in there every single time. So it is interesting, but we are still monitoring this. But for some informational type content, we are noticing what keywords generate that before we create the content and trying to optimize our content around what the AI overview is showing. Because we obviously want to be sourced in there. We want to be number 1. So we're trying to test things out to see what works and what doesn't. But it's early on, so test things out, see what works, and just kind of monitor it after.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We have a couple minutes left. Are there any closing thoughts that either of you would like to go over before we say goodbye to our webinar guest today?
I mean, everyone was very engaged. We appreciate everyone's questions. Obviously, there is a lot going on within the search landscape. What we recommend is, again, create content for users, answer the questions that match their heart and soul. Don't create content for search engines or these AI tools, and test things out. See what works, see what, helps out your site, but make sure that you're creating content that actually benefits users and gives them, some value adds. Obviously, if we didn't answer any of your questions today, we apologize. There's a lot of good ones. Feel free to connect with Alex or myself on LinkedIn. We're obviously happy to, talk more about SEO and content marketing there. But again, there's a lot changing. SEO isn't dying. It's just evolving. So just make sure that you're prepping your leadership for these changes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And anything on your end, Alex?
We definitely want to thank everyone for joining today. We had a lot of really good engagement and questions in the chat. I also kind of wanted to close with saying that it's definitely quality over quantity. So when you're creating content, always making sure that you're staying with the SEO best practices, doing the keyword research, and really making sure that you're creating your content with your SEO best practices in mind moving forward. And that should put you in a good place, regardless of how Google chooses to surface those results. So thanks everyone for joining today.
Sounds fantastic. And thank you for sharing this information and being right on the edge of this as it happens, right? So I feel like we're going to need 2024 trend updates every other week, the way things are going right now. It's been a crazy year. We're halfway through it. So let's see what happens in a few weeks in terms of changes. Speaking of later in the year, our next SEJ webinar here is actually an internal SEJ webinar. We're going to be doing how expert brands are winning at lead generation right now. This is going to be with Heather Campbell and Jennifer McDonald of Search Engine Journal on June 26th. Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're interested to see how some of the leading brands right now are winning at lead gen, make sure you register for that. And again, Zach and Alex, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time today to share this information. I saw you were both interacting so much in the Q&A by typing in those answers. That was phenomenal. Thank you so much for that. And like you said, if there's something that we did a chance to get to, because we had a lot of great questions coming in, we'll send those over to you. And the biggest question that comes through for our attendees is, will this be made available? We will be making the video, slides, and then sending out a recap afterwards for all attendees and registrants. So again, guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Everyone. Thanks for having us.
Okay, have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.